Thank you for joining us today. I'm about to share a story that will challenge how you think about love, beauty, and what truly matters in a relationship. This is the story of a millionaire, a man who had it all: wealth, success, power, and influence. Yet, when it came to choosing a life partner, he shocked everyone by going against every expectation society had for him. His choice left people talking, and what happened at the wedding was something no one could have predicted. Picture this: a beautiful wedding venue filled with excited guests, all dressed to the nines. It was the wedding of the year, held at an elegant estate, decorated with the finest details, grand floral arrangements, sparkling chandeliers, and every touch you'd expect for a millionaire's special day. As the guests arrived, they were buzzing with anticipation, thrilled to finally see who the bride would be. People assumed that, given his status, the groom's bride would look like she stepped right out of a fashion magazine, tall, thin, and glamorous, fitting the image that society often promotes. But when the bride appeared, stepping out onto the aisle, the room fell silent. She wasn't what the guests expected at all. She wasn't a supermodel, nor did she fit society's narrow standard of beauty. Instead, she was a plus-sized woman, her warm smile and quiet confidence radiating as she walked down the aisle. Some people in the audience looked shocked, others couldn't hold back their whispers. You could hear murmurs and see guests exchanging curious glances. People were visibly puzzled. Why would a man like him marry someone like her? They thought, and some even chuckled, judging her right then and there. But what they didn't know was the story of how this couple had come together. A story that transcended appearances and wealth. You see, our groom hadn't always been the successful millionaire he was on that day. He'd built his life from the ground up, experiencing his fair share of setbacks along the way. And as he built his wealth, he tried to find love, searching for someone to share his life with. He dated women who looked like they'd stepped out of a Hollywood movie. They were glamorous, beautiful, and captivating on the surface. Yet, every time, the relationships felt shallow, like something important was missing. Then he met her. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah wasn't someone who fit the expectations he'd once had, nor did she fit into society's limited idea of beauty. But when he met her, it was as if his whole perspective shifted. Sarah was genuine and kind-hearted, with a warmth that felt like home. She wasn't interested in impressing anyone or putting on a show. She didn't care about his money or the lifestyle it could bring. She saw him not as a millionaire, but as a person, and for the first time, he felt truly seen and understood. Sarah made him laugh like no one else. She listened to him, and she celebrated his successes in a way that felt real. For the first time in his life, he felt like he'd found someone who valued him for who he was, not what he could give. As their relationship deepened, they both realized that they'd found something extraordinary. They shared a connection that went beyond physical appearance or social expectations. She stood by him when things got hard, celebrated with him when things went well, and supported him without ever asking for anything in return. It was this sense of loyalty, friendship, and companionship that eventually led them to the wedding day. Back at the wedding, the guests continued to murmur and whisper as Sarah walked down the aisle, some of them unable to hide their judgmental expressions. To them, it seemed unthinkable that a man of his stature would choose a partner who didn't fit the mold society created. But as she reached the altar, she looked at him, and he looked at her, and in that moment, nothing else mattered. There was something in his eyes that made the judgment and whispers fade away. For him, she was the most beautiful woman in the world, not because of her appearance, but because of her heart, her kindness, and the love they shared. When the ceremony began, the guests went quiet as the couple prepared to exchange vows. The groom took Sarah's hands in his, looked into her eyes, and began to speak. He spoke of the journey they had taken together, how she had been his rock and his inspiration. He spoke about how, before meeting her, he had searched for something meaningful and always felt that something was missing. But when he met her, he found what he had been looking for all along. He talked about how she showed him a new way of loving, one that wasn't based on appearances or material things, but on something much deeper. Every word he spoke was filled with sincerity, his voice soft and filled with emotion. As he continued, a change began to happen in the room. The people who had been judging her just moments before now found themselves captivated by his words, by the raw, authentic love he was describing. They could see how much he loved her, how genuinely grateful he was to have her in his life. He was talking about a love that was real, a love that went beyond the shallow ideals of beauty and wealth. And in that moment, many of the guests realized that they had been too quick to judge. They saw that they had been viewing love through a narrow lens, one focused on appearances rather than what truly matters. By the time he finished his vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. The guests who had once chuckled or whispered in judgment were now wiping away tears, moved by the depth of their bond. For the first time, they saw Sarah as he saw her, not as someone who didn't fit a conventional mold, but as someone who was uniquely beautiful in her own way. She was beautiful because of her kindness, her warmth, and the way she had transformed his life. And perhaps for the first time, they understood that love isn't about fitting into a superficial image, but about finding someone who makes you feel complete. The ceremony continued, and the two exchanged rings, sealing their vows with a kiss. The guests, who had arrived with preconceived ideas about love and beauty, were now applauding, some of them feeling a sense of admiration for the couple. What had begun as a spectacle of judgment had transformed into a celebration of a love that was deep, real, and genuine. As the couple walked back down the aisle, hand in hand, they were smiling, completely at peace with each other. They had found something rare and precious, a love that was unshaken by appearances or the opinions of others. For them, the day was about honoring the life they were about to share, a life built on friendship, respect, and unconditional love. And as they left the room, they left behind a story that would inspire everyone who heard it. Over the weeks that followed, their story began to spread, and people who heard about it were moved. Some began to re-examine their own beliefs, questioning why they had allowed society's ideas of beauty and status to cloud their understanding of what makes a relationship truly meaningful. They realized that they had been conditioned to value things that, in the end, don't bring lasting happiness. And this story, the love between this millionaire and his wife, became a reminder for people everywhere to look beyond the surface, to seek connections that bring genuine happiness and fulfillment. This story teaches us all a valuable lesson. Society often pressures us to chase after ideals of beauty and success, making us believe that happiness is found in external perfection. But the reality is that true happiness comes from finding someone who understands you, who loves you for who you are, and who stands by you through everything. It's not about appearances or wealth. It's about finding someone who brings peace, joy, and love into your life. It's about having someone who sees you as you are and loves you for it. In the end, stories like this show us that love doesn't conform to society's narrow standards. Real love isn't something you can measure by appearance or material success. It's about finding someone who feels like home, who accepts you completely, and who makes you want to be the best version of yourself. It's about choosing a partner who truly makes you happy, someone who makes your life richer in every sense that matters. So, as you think about this story, take a moment to ask yourself, what do you value in a relationship? Are you focusing on appearances, or are you looking for something deeper? Remember, love isn't about fitting into an ideal image. It's about finding a connection that is real and lasting. It's about choosing someone who brings joy and comfort, someone who makes you feel whole. Thank you for being here with us today. If you found this story inspiring, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need a reminder about the true meaning of love. Let this story serve as a reminder that beauty is more than skin deep, and love is about so much more than appearances. We'll see you in the next video.